Yes, guys, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur with your boy Dave, and we are bringing you your Monday chat with Sean about all things Tottenham. I know you guys are enjoying them because the comment section is absolutely on fire underneath. The views are good, but one thing I have to complain about is you're not giving us topics underneath to discuss, so make sure you get them in. They're very important. We want to discuss the topics that you feel are important, so make sure you get them in. But Shawnee, first of all, how are you on this fine Monday morning, my man? I mean, winners are grinners, right?
Yes, mate. 100%, mate. I'm in a good spirits. It's bank holiday Monday here, so day off from work. Even though I think someone like myself always has to find a little bit of time to get on with that stuff. But you know what, mate? It's a good day to be alive. It's a good day to be a Tottenham fan. We're near the top of the table. Results are going our way in certain areas. There's lots to talk about. I can't wait to spend the next however long it is with you going through whatever the topics are of today.
Yeah, well, look, Shawnee, we've got two topics that I find of interest. The first one is about how quick Ange sort of implemented his system and what's been the biggest backbone behind that for it to allow his system to sort of thrive. And then the next one we're going to talk about is if people look at the substitutions over the last two games and the sub we've made, they've been experienced players coming off the bench, and it's ended up helping us go and get the second goal to kill the game. And should we be having an entirely different outlook on these guys and the value they have to offer? And so we'll get into that. But look, Shawnee, let's start with the first topic, my man. I mean, look, all the Spurs fan base, they're absolutely raving about Ange Ball, unless you're Gary Neville. I think he's the only one in the Premier League not enjoying Ange Ball right now, because I think our right wing backs are showing up what he should have done in his career. However, Shawnee, what has been the biggest sort of influence behind Ange being able to implement the system? Because I made arguments last season that Conte's trying to play out from the back, but we just don't have the players to do it. And in order for us to do that, we have to make signings in certain positions across the back line for us to be able to sort of play that way. Do you think that the recruitment we've done has allowed this? Do you think it's maybe the midfield? What do you think has been the backbone behind Ange's start to the season?
I think the obvious starting point for if we're going to be allocating the reasons why we can change and do this vision is having a better left-sided centre-back. Having someone for Romero to play alongside, I think, has given him the confidence to be able to be, braver in certain areas, but also, with his new assistant captain or vice captain role, he knows he's got a bit more responsibility on his shoulders, and he seems to have thrived under that role. Van de Ven has come in with the pace, which allows everybody to push up. It allows everybody in front to feel confident that if something was to go wrong with the ball getting put over the top, we have people there that can get back. It's not just Van de Ven with the pace, though. It's the guy to his left, Destiny Udogie, who, for me, I think has been an absolute revelation. Van de Ven has been a revelation, has come in and hit the ground running, and he had a very, very expensive price tag around his neck that comes with a lot of expectation and pressure, and he has ridden that. Has he been flawless? No, but he's not far away. For me, the guy next to him, Destiny Udogie, has been sensational. The guy is a monster physically. He can get up and down the pitch. He's got trickery, but he can get back. He's not afraid to get stuck in. I mean, yesterday, not to get off the topic, but I felt like at times the only person on the pitch that was willing to go toe-to-toe with Philip Billing on a physicality match was, in fact, Destiny Udogie. And I think that him alongside Van de Ven has kind of secured our left side, which in turn gives Romero more confidence. And then, I'm not going to dance over Romero. I think he was absolutely fantastic yesterday. I think he's been fantastic this season so far. But next to him, you have a guy that I think, and I said it last week on your show, I think we were all mudded by his performance. I think maybe not you, Dave, but most people in the fan base were saying, he's not a right back. He can't defend. But you know what he is? He's someone that is a mentality monster and someone that absolutely will figure it out. And he's figuring out. He's being asked to do something entirely new. The inverted fullback role is allowing people like Bissouma to have the confidence. And I don't want to get too dragged into the individual specificities because you've asked me a specific question, but what's the difference? I think it's the solid back four that we can now rely on, that know their role, that are enjoying their role, that can work together and are building chemistry. But on top of that, I think the most important factor is having that Bissouma element, someone that I treat as a new signing this year. He wasn't used last year under the Conte system, and he had a bad injury. Without him and without some of those signings at the back, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things we're doing further up the pitch. So for me, whilst the front is looking really cool with people like Maddison doing what they're doing, it all starts with a solid back, as you've always said, Dave.
Look, I 100% agree with you. There's 2 points I want to touch on that you've made there, Sean. One about Van de Ven. I think you're absolutely spot on. I think that the fact that the midfield have confidence in our backline. I'll throw Vicario into this as well. The fact that they're all able to look after the ball and they can play out from the back, they're comfortable on the ball. Are you then saying it allows our midfielders and forward lines to go and take more risks on the ball and try more things than what they would have done usually, knowing that they now have that solid back line behind them to protect them if they do give away that ball?
Yeah, I think that the people like Bissouma have got more luxury to play the 6 when you have someone like Porro tucked in next to him half the time with the ball. You know, he can be a little bit more flamboyant. He can be a little bit more risky, even though he's playing in a very technically a defensive role, because he has a guy who's playing inverted next to him. Because you have those guys pushed up closer to the halfway line than the 18-yard box, it allows for more security within the area of the pitch that the ball is most often found. And like I say, that's all very well as long as you have confidence that when you do lose the ball, and we will, and we have, and we will continue to at certain times, when the ball is in transition, that you know if the ball gets put over the top, that you have the people behind you who can recover and who are faster than the average person that's going to be running in the other direction away from you. And to me, when you've got Van de Ven and Udogie and Pedro Porro as well, let's not overlook his pace. It's a wonderful set of assets to have that can protect our midfielders, protect the whole squad. And yeah, to me, it's just, I don't know if it's just a honeymoon period, but it looks like everyone's understanding their role, or understanding their assignment and affecting it, executing it very well.
Look, I think you're absolutely spot on. I do want to move on and talk about Porro in 1 minute, but I think you're absolutely spot on, right? Last year, in possession, it was very much left to right, side to side. No one really wanted to take any sort of risks on the ball because they knew as soon as they did, the other team would go straight down the other end and put the ball in the back of the net unchallenged. And I think whereas what you're seeing this year is seeing our players take more risks, trying balls from different angles in behind to break down the opposition, because they now feel confident in that back line that they're there ready to protect them, turn the ball over and let these guys go at it again. And I've always argued, you keep clean sheets, you have a very good chance of winning games. And if you get better defenders, you can play sexy football at Tottenham Hotspur. You can play out from the back. So I think you're making an absolute crucial point there, Shawnee. You're right. The back line has sort of, allowed us to be able to, first of all, play the ball through the lines so that the midfielder can get quality time on the ball to make stuff happen. But also defensively, they've been absolutely solid as well. So I'm glad to see that. Just moving on to right back. I mean, look, I love the mentality of the 2 right backs, right? They've both been criticised in their own right. Emerson came in here. He had songs sung about this, that, and the other. But he's went and spent his own money on improving himself, and we've seen the benefits. You look at Pedro Porro. He's been called out by Gary Neville. He's been called out by Tim Sherwood. Look at his responses. And I think, again, that has something to do with the improvement in our backline. Down the years, we've spent so much money on trying to replace Kyle Walker, and we've never really got there with it. But we've also had players there like Doherty, Aurier, who just had crap mentalities. As soon as things went wrong, they folded and it spiraled. It led them to playing safe. It led them to making silly mistakes. Where if you look at the 2 right backs we've got now, I get people may still have questions over them, and rightly so. Look, we've only got a small bite-sized sample to go from. However, what I will say is the mentality of these guys to constantly go out there and prove people wrong will drag them up to that level that we need them to be at consistently. And for me, I just think that backline added in with Vicario, I think is absolutely huge as well, Shawnee, because last year we had Hugo Lloris, right? Let's talk about the saves aspect. Hugo Lloris cost us, I'd say, between 12 and 15 points last year with poor mistakes or efforts that he should have saved on goal. But also, there was times, I remember in the North London derbies, the ball would go back to him. People are looking for him to sort of take the pressure for a minute so that people can get into positions to be able to receive the ball. But Hugo Lloris would panic, punt it long. And in the North London derby, especially at our place last season, it led to 2 goals off the back of it. There was another one somewhere earlier on in the season where it was a pass back to Hugo Lloris. Somehow he ended up letting it go out for a corner, and I think they scored off the back of it. And his distribution had really let us down. Whereas with Vicario, right, he makes it look easy. I remember Dyer just trying to do a simple ball over the top to the fullback or the wing back, and it ended up in the stands. Look at Vicario. It's like he's got the pitching wedge out, Sean, and he just glides it over the player straight into Adogie's feet or someone like that. I think he's been massive in that regard as well, because you look at the game yesterday, you look at the game against United and Brentford, regardless of how much they want to press us, this guy, he can play over the top. He can play it out. He's comfortable with the ball, which then helps our midfielders get on the ball with their team pushed up. And with the quality, they're able to beat one or two players, take them out of the game, and we're opening up the chances then for ourselves going forward. So I think Vicario has been absolutely huge as well, Shawnee.
I think you're spot on, mate. And I think it's a really good point. I'm glad I didn't mention it to give you, because I feel like I took up all of the other defenders before then. So I've given you something to kind of to riff off. Vicario has been exceptional. What's interesting to me is in the start of these games against Manchester United, against Brentford, and against Bournemouth, we seem to suck the pressure early. We seem to give it back to Vicario. And in the first 2 or 3 minutes of every game, me as a fan doing a watch along, I'm sure you're doing the same, a little bit nervy when you're like 90 seconds in and you're seeing us like messing around with the ball. And yet we figure it out. Right? It doesn't always look necessarily that pretty, but we figure it out. But over the course of the first half, that whole thing becomes more of a patterning that draws the players out. That when we figure it out and we do get it, when we pass it around, then it always ends up, it hasn't as of yet cost us anything. It ends up creating opportunities, to your point. And last week we were talking about, maybe it was the week before, we were talking about how the absence of Harry Kane against Brentford already cost us 2 points. I think you could negate them now by saying the absence of Eric Dyer and the absence of Hugo Lloris has probably gained us 4 points.
I'd also argue, I know Davies scored against United, but the absence of Davies or Session at left back, Adoji has been absolutely phenomenal as well. I think, I don't think that recruitment over this summer has probably been highlighted enough. And, the fact that Ange has the benefit of someone like Adoji, Vicario, and Van de Ven, and look at the difference. So,
it's interesting. A lot of people are, sorry, mate. A lot of people are, I've asked maybe 20 people on my channel when they've come on after the game. I said, what is the window thus far? And most people are giving it a 3.5 to a 5. And I guess maybe if you look just at the window in isolation, it's because you've sold your best player and you haven't necessarily spent that much or anything at all. If you discount the Kulu money and the Porro money that should have been allocated to previous windows. And maybe it's because some of the players that are turning up this year for us actually weren't signed in this window, like Destiny, like Basuma, But for me, I feel like the reason why we are a better team this year is not just because of the football we're playing. We couldn't be playing this football. If Ange inherited the squad that we had last year, if Ange started September or August 2022, he wouldn't be able to get the output that he's getting from the squad last year. We might have been able to get more blood from the stone than Conte did with his tactics. That remains to be debated or whatever else. But ultimately, the squad we have now is significantly better than it was this time last summer.
Yeah.
And so I find it a little bit strange that when people say it's a 4 out of 10 window, when the squad is so much dramatically more confident and more competent. I don't know if that's just because people are, remembering that some of these players were signed last summer or not. What's your take on it?
Look, I think it's two things. I think, some of the signings that's come to the fore, like you mentioned, Basuma, Papa Matasar, Romero stepped up another level, right? You've got Adoji who was signed in the previous window and loaned back out. I think, a lot of these players have come to the fore where maybe they didn't previously, but I've always argued you take Lloris out, you take Ben Davies, or you take Dyer out, you get a proper left back in here, someone that knows the role. You're going to see a much better defensive, cohesive unit. And currently we're seeing that. But also, Sean, I think it's to do with the fact that we know we need to get players out. We've caused ourselves a problem where we're now coming to the end of the window, and instead of looking at where we can strengthen to give Ange Postecoglou and this team the very best chance to push this project and see where it can take us, we're now being hindered, and our focus is actually trying to offload players, which, shouldn't necessarily be the case. And I know other Premier League clubs sort of have the same problems and the difficulties around it. I get all that. But I think that's where maybe the lower rating comes in. I think Spurs fans are maybe learning from years gone by. For instance, Sanchez and Dyer and that had a good season, end of the season, under Antonio Conte the first season he was here. But then, many people got suckered into it, give them a chance, they played well. But then when the window closed, they reverted back to type. And look what ended up happening. They just weren't good enough and cost us points. I think many Spurs fans are awake to this sort of problem now. And they just want us to have the right options in the right area. Because, look, we can sit here and say, yes, we've got a good 11. But when them games start coming in a bit quicker and a bit faster, and they will over the likes of November, December, you're going to carry injuries. You're going to carry suspensions. And at Tottenham, we've carried a lot over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And for me, once that starts happening and you have to start chopping and changing, that's where the quality is brought down and that's where your results will be affected. So I think that's probably why the rating is where it is right now. However, you clear some of these guys out, you bring in 2 or 3 players before the end of the window, that rating will be pushed up to an 8 or a 9. I think you'll see more people give the ratings with chest and with what they believe rather than out of fear, because they know exactly the product that we're seeing on the football pitch for sure.
I hear you, mate. I 100% agree. And thus far, I hate that. It's a bit of a catchphrase, but I don't like saying it because it's such a sort of temporary status. But I do think that the window, you can't judge it until the window closes. But if the window was to close as it currently is, then I don't think you could give it anything higher than a 6 or a 5, really, because we are, like you say, and we were talking about it earlier on. Paper thin. We've got a very, very good looking, attractive first 11 right now. There's a hole within the first 11. I think we all know what it is up the top end, where we can't seem to create enough, or we can't seem to convert enough, rather. But absent that, the first 11 to me looks comparable and competitive against any team in the Premier League. Yeah. But like I said, if you got 5 or 6 of those players in certain positions where if any one of them goes down, then the squad looks paper cup esque in terms of its strength in depth, and that to me is can be solved. Will it be solved? We don't know. We got 5 days to figure it out. So,
and look, one example I'm going to use, I'm actually going to maybe counter one of the arguments we're going to talk about next, but it's actually about left back, for instance, right? Adoji comes out, Davies comes in. Now, I'm not going to get into my personal opinions on Ben Davies. I'm going to take the majority, and the majority think he's a solid player. However, will you have the same effect playing out from the back when Ben Davies is there instead of Adoji through suspension or through injury? I'd argue no. Ben Davies ain't going to change on the ball overnight just like that. So for me, you are going to see a drop-off. And then as a consequence, how many times it is that you get out, how many chances you create, how many times the opposition create on you because you're giving away the ball. So all has a knock-on effect. So I think it's very, very important to be able to get this sort of business done before the end of the window. But look, we're going to have plenty of discussions on that this week, I'm sure, Shawnee, with deadline day fast approaching. But look, let's move on to maybe the last talking point, Sean. And it's something that I've sort of noticed, right? The last 2 games versus United and Bournemouth, you look at some of the substitutions we've made. Perisic has come off the bench. Hoiberg has come off the bench. Davies has come off the bench. And what's happened is both games, we've gone from 1-0, where we may be looking a bit dicey at times, and it's changed the game. We've gone and got the second goal, and then we've been able to sort of use that experience to see out the game. And a lot of people would have said, and including me on Ben Davies, sell. However, should we actually be looking at it a little bit differently and maybe looking at the sort of not monetary value, but the other value that maybe they offer Ange Postecoglou in terms of being able to have experienced heads to come off the bench that have the know-how to change the game, but also see the game out? Because, last year we moaned and we cried about not having options off the bench. You go back and look at a lot of the benches last year. They were either defensive players that were never going to impact the game going forward, or, at times we didn't even have any really forward players on the bench. So should we be actually looking at these guys a bit differently and what they offer the squad rather than just the initial sell, Sean?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. It's a great sort of topic to discuss. Maybe needs to be discussed in more depth than we can give it over the next sort of 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But for me, I think that you've got players like Perisic and Ben Davies on the left-hand side who offer that experience, who offer the ability to kind of to step up, to understand instruction and to execute what's necessary, both defensively and offensively. Perisic came onto the pitch. All right, apart from, and again, we're going to maybe counteract our own point here I have to reference it. It was a little bit petulant. I don't know why he did what he did. He could have got sent off against another referee or with a different VAR, throwing a fist out. If he didn't have hold of the guy's shirt, it would have looked like a punch and he could have been sent off. So maybe that was the entire antithesis of why he was on the pitch. But not only does he offer something different going forward, I've mentioned it 1,000 times. You know, people mock me for the use of the word cadence, but you know, I love the rhythmic routine of his step overs. They are so difficult to read. He has this incredible timing where you just don't know which one he's going to be his last before he pivots to the left or the right. Most other wing forwards give something away to smart defenders who know what to look for, and they'll be able to read a little bit into it. He is like a book that you can't read before he makes his dart, either to the byline or inside. He offers variety in his own play going forward, but to your point, on top of that, he offers security, a steady head 9 times out of 10, absent the moment against Bournemouth. And you can make the same argument about Ben Davies. Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg came on. A lot of people have been thinking he doesn't fit the system. Maybe he doesn't fit a natural 6. Maybe he doesn't fit the specific 8 that sits behind, that comes out wide to cover for the Pedro Porro or for the Emerson that has to tuck inside and play inverted. But that role is tied up for people that are starting the game. You know, for people that are coming on in the 60th minute, whether you're chasing the game or whether you are trying to kind of batten down the hatches, people like Pierre-Emile Hojbjerg, again, can come in and do a job. And I thought he was fantastic against Bournemouth. So I actually look at the bench now, and I think that there's maybe not enough variety of player positions in there. We don't have, for example, an out-and-out forward to bring on, an out-and-out number 9. And that forces us, when Richarlison disappoints, to bring Sonny inside and go with one of our utility wingers. Maybe they just need a little bit more diversity with what's on the bench. But ultimately, I do like the fact that we do have some steady heads that can come on and see the game out. And to your point, 2 games running now when we've needed people to come on for fresh legs, because the system that Ange asks is incredibly labor intensive. It is exhausting. And he brings people on in the 60th minute. And those guys know what to do, is just as familiar with the system as the guys that started the game. And 2 times out of 2, they've done what was asked of them. So yeah, I think it's a great point, mate. I think that you do need a bit of experience, and so far the guys haven't let us down.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a know-how, and it's just something I've noticed over the last couple of games. And it'd be interesting to see whether sort of Ange feels the same. So look, I think that the question, especially around Hoiberg now, should be not does he fit the system, because we've seen he's come on, he's well able to knock the ball around. I think it's more so, does he want to be a backup? Because let's be honest, he ain't going to start over Basuma unless we carry an injury, because he just can't do what Basuma offers us in terms of going forward.
And he won't start ahead of Bentancur either, right?
No, he won't start ahead of Bentancur. I have a feeling, though, Bentancur will be competing with Sarr for that number 8, personally. But look, you know, the question now should be not does Hoiberg fit the system, but does he want to be a backup in this Ange system? Because for me, but also Sean, right, we also have to take into account now we're going to carry injuries. So if we are, and these guys are kept around, and the same guys that are stepping in, do they affect how we play in that first 11 if they step in then through suspensions or injuries? Do they bring that overall quality down, or do they sort of fit in seamlessly? I'd argue at left back, Ben Davies brings it down in terms of on the ball. Perisic, I think he's going to create you chances no matter what. And Hoiberg, I think, will do a job. And if you've got Bentancur and Maddison ahead of him, maybe you don't need 100% of what maybe Basuma offers to the team. So that's the next question then, Shawnee. Because they're going to have to step in if we're keeping them around. They're the next in line if we do carry injuries and suspensions. Will they offer us the same quality, or will they drag that overall quality down?
I think when we're judging Hojbjerg, I think we have to reflect on the fact that we're looking at a Hojbjerg that's been asked to play 100 minutes of football twice a week, pretty much every week for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And so the guy has, you know, maybe if he's not asked to play as frequently, maybe he's got more in his tank that he can sort of dive into when he's not playing half exhausted all the time. There's very few players that played as many minutes as he does week in, week out in previous seasons. So I'd be surprised if he can emulate Basuma to the same level. I don't think he has the same trickiness and the same sort of quick feet. But that doesn't mean that there's necessarily a huge drop-off. To your point, if you pick the right people in front and you slightly adapt the responsibilities of them and ask them to do something different, then maybe, just maybe, it's not going to be quite as big of a drop-off. I think with someone like Perisic, I think that Perisic doesn't have 90 minutes in him playing the system.
Yeah.
So if there was to be an injury to Richarlison and you pulled Sonny in and you asked Perisic to play the high press, I think he's been wonderful when he's come on. You know what he's going to do. You know what you don't know exactly what he's going to do because of his unpredictability with the cadence and the stepovers, but you do know that he's going to be capable and competent. And when you're not asking him to do the kind of the prerequisite defensive stuff that was under the Conte system, then he can rely and he can get back to doing what he's very good at, which is putting the ball on a sixpence and putting it into the danger areas. Where I worry about him is if there's no one that can come on to give him a breather, because I don't know if he can do that for 90. I think he can do it for 60. But if he does have to start because of injuries or rotation, I don't expect him to finish too many games. But apart from that, the other players that are on the bench, Solomon, we haven't seen enough of yet. I'm excited to see him. I think he's a bit of a game changer, a bit of someone that can come on and create something on the right or the left. Ollie Skip, again, look, Ollie Skip divides a lot of people. I think there's a lot of love for the guy. But for me personally, I think he can do a job, but I do worry about the drop-off. Even between Sarr and Skip, I think there's a significant drop at the moment. So I think, look, it's very unusual to have a bench that is as competent as your starting 11. Very few teams have that luxury. It's about kind of minimizing the deficit. But I think Ange Postecoglou will have a few tricks up his sleeve to be able to tinker and tweak the system and to ask and what he's asking of certain players in those scenarios where injuries are a problem. And we should be able to make do.
Absolutely spot on. And look, Shawnee, last but not least, because we've got the big Carabao Cup game tomorrow, it's away from home. We're used to going out away from home in these cup games. I mean, look, what's your feelings and sort of thoughts heading into that Fulham game, and what's your score prediction?
2-0 Tottenham. I don't fear going away from home under Ange. I really don't.
Yeah.
We've handled ourselves very, very convincingly the last 2 away games. I just feel like we're under a bit of a different banner now. I think that you can throw a lot of the kind of old school, the track records or the whatever you want to call them, throw them out the window, because I feel like this Tottenham team, it looks completely different to any Tottenham team that I can remember for about 5 or 6 years. So when I see Tottenham go away, especially against Fulham, I think that Tottenham will be fine. It won't be a walk in the park for sure. Fulham's a very tight pitch, so it's not going to be as easy to play free-flowing football. But if we can get our 1-2 touch sort of passing, if we can get it on point early in the game, then I look at our squad and look at Fulham's and think that we should be able to. I don't think we'll need a draw or go to penalties or whatever. If there's a replay, I'm not sure, but I think we'll get the job done on the night and we'll get ourselves in the third round of the hat. What do you think, mate?
I'm convinced the draw's rigged, Sean. You look at some of the other teams we could have got, right? We end up pulling out a Premier League team. And I think they know our record against beating Premier League teams away from home in these cup competitions. And I think personally they want to set it up, to knock us out or at least make it a bit exciting, right? But look, we spoke about the drop-off in quality when there's changes made. Well, we're going to find out against Fulham for sure, right? Ange Postecoglou alluded that he will make changes. And it's not because he wants to give players game time. It's because he feels like he needs to make changes in order to win the game, to keep that intensity. So we'll know tomorrow, off that Fulham game tomorrow, what the drop-off in quality in certain areas look like. I think it'll give us a very good outlook, but also might throw up one more position that we might need to go in before the deadline day happens. So, I think we'll learn a lot from that Fulham game, really how good not just the first 11 is, but the quality outside of that 11. Can they now come to the fore where in years squad players haven't done that? Can they now do that? And if they do, I think we go on 2 cup runs this year.
Love it, mate. I agree. Just out of curiosity, who do you see being the changes then? Like, shout me out your predicted 11.
Yeah, look, I'll go. I think Richarlison retains his place up front, for sure. I think they got to try and play him into confidence. I'm going to go with Perisic on the left and Solomon on the right. I think you rest Kulu and Son. I think Hoiberg might come in for a Basuma, maybe a Lo Celso in for either Sarr or Maddison. But you know what? I'm not entirely convinced on that midfield three. Part of me makes me think he'll start off with the same midfield three from the weekend, and then maybe look to bring the likes of a Hoiberg and Lo Celso on a Skip off the bench, because he did get them off very early against Fulham, which means you will get at least some part of the game out of these guys. I think Look, well, I wouldn't like to make any changes across that back line. The only one I would be comfortable in making is Emerson, maybe for Pedro Porro. But apart from that, I think if we make too many changes across that back line, that's where our problem will be. And I think it'll come back to cost us if we do. So I think the back line more or less remains the same. I think he might put at least two of them midfielders out there for the first half of the Fulham game. I think you'll see the changes out in the wide areas up in the wings.
Yeah, I like that. I'm very much up for it. Solomon against his old club. Be interesting what sort of reception he gets. And Perry, if you're going to play Perry on the left, there's no point in playing Sonny in the middle because Perry puts the ball in the air, does very well with it. But you're going to need someone who can put his head on the ball, and Sonny doesn't do that. So yeah, I'm happy to see Perisic and Richarlison. I'd love to see Richarlison get a goal. A lot of people think that I am out to get Richarlison. I'm not. I just give you my genuine, honest thoughts on him. But I want him to succeed. Of course I do, and I'd love him to get a goal, to get that kind of monkey off his back a little bit, So,
but this is the thing.
I agree with your 11, to be honest.
This is the thing, though, Shawnee. Right? I know, people don't like us criticizing the players when things are going well. However, it's not criticism; it's critiquing and looking at it in a way where if we improve that, we can go to even greater heights. And I don't think we should ignore the flaws in some of our players. For the last 4 years, we've had players holding back this football club for one reason or another. We're at a point now where we've gone through so much crap to get this delicious, delightful football that Ange Postecoglou has given us. We can't afford to carry passengers. We can't afford to persist with players if their quality is just not there. Every player that arrives now has to come to the fore. And we sit here, we moan about not winning trophies. And for me, that's why I will critique Richarlison, because I don't believe he's going to get the goals that we need, because I predict the football will carry us for quite a lot. I think the fact that we've got no Europe, I think we're going to surprise a lot of teams this year. I think we'll finish higher up the league than what many predicted and what even I predicted. And I think having that striker is the difference between us taking it to the next level. And for me, that's where I want to go. So if I feel like someone Richarlison ain't going to bring us there, it's not because I don't want this and I critique the guy. It's not because I don't want him to work out. I want everyone that comes to this club to work out. However, my patience has gone with crap players at Tottenham. If they're not doing the job, get them out, get the next guy in. We've seen over the last 4 years holding on to players that aren't good enough and wishing and hoping the next season they come out and be better, and they just don't. We can't afford to carry passengers anymore, not with the way the Premier League is moving financially, not with the speed of it, and not with the way it's played on the pitch. So anyone that sort of gives out about the criticism of Richarlison, it's at the end of the day, it wouldn't be there if he was producing, right? If he was doing his job.
Yeah, and it's just expectations as well. I'd make the same exact argument about players like Sonny. The only reason I critique harder on Sonny than I do other players is because I know he's capable. I know what he's capable of, and I love the guy, and I want him to get back to his best. So I 100% agree. It's the difference between criticism and critique. All we're trying to do is figure out what our minds are telling us is the best method for Tottenham to succeed and proceed. And if that has to include some hard truths, home truths about certain players, so be it, But at the end of the day, we all want what's best for Tottenham, and we all want those players, if they pull on the shirt, to do as best they can. So there's no agendas or hatred. It's just opinions and best wishes.
Exactly. And, if you don't agree, let's have the conversations around these topics where we can all have them, but oh, my bad. But look, we're going to end it off there. Everyone, give Shawnee a massive thanks in the comments for giving up his time this morning for your stream, for this chat. I've actually really enjoyed it. I feel each one we do is getting better and better. Me and Sean can talk for hours about things. Sean's channel name will be in the title, so make sure you just click on that, get over, smash that subscribe button, and show him the same love that he shows myself and Jack and all you Irish Hotspur fanatics out there. Shawnee, just maybe to entice people over, just give them a little maybe smell or hint of what's going on over there at Spurs Talk Show, my man.
Yeah, mate, Dave, I absolutely adore doing these with you, mate. Always love streaming with you and Jack as well. Big shout out to Jack. It's always, the time absolutely flies. On Spurs Talk Show, you can find daily walks. I take my dog out and get whatever's on my chest or whatever's in the news. I'll just report it whilst taking the dog out, trying to get my 10,000 steps in. And then maybe 3 or 4 times a week, I do streams on my channel with people like Dave, with people like, that you'll see from around the community. And then, you'll also see me on this channel a occasionally on Thursday nights is when my my youth is played. So that's where you can find me, Spurs Talk Show, guys. Shout out to everyone. Shout out to the chat. And come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. In the mighty Ange we trust. Everyone, get your comments in below. Let us know what your thoughts are on today's topics, but also give us the topics you want us to discuss going forward. Me and Sean just put them in. We'll pick out the best ones and we'll have a conversation on it. Subscribe to Spurs Talk Show. Hit the like button. We'll see you all guys later on for the fan show. Come on, you Spurs. In the mighty Ange we trust. We never stop. I love it.
Everywhere we go.